That's all we will do. And then I will release you. So question number 1. Okay. They say Rock and Roll Limited has a current share price, okay, of 80 Rand. Okay. And then PE ratio, multiple of, let me actually say, of 12.5. And then the company has 450 shares in issue. Okay, so number of shares. It is 450,000. Okay, we are recording. Super. Yes, I am. If this thing down here is displaying, then I am. But thank you for that, because we know what has happened in the past. Right. So then we have, it says the company has a retention policy of 60%. Okay. So, and is considering whether to distribute dividends to its shareholders or instead engage in a share buyback scheme. Okay. So that's the dilemma there. Okay. So retention policy is 60%. So what does that mean? The payout ratio, ne, is then 40%. Okay, right. Now, this share buyback scheme at a price equivalent to the current share price plus the expected dividend. Okay, so we have two options here. All right. From the first line here, the company has a retention payout of 60%. Sorry, retention policy. So yes, the difference will be, so basically if you say 1 minus 60%, it will give you 40%. Okay, right. So the two options that we are considering is 1, do we distribute dividends? This pen is too thick. Okay, and then 2, do we do a share buyback? Okay, those are the two things that we are actually considering. Okay, right. So the first thing they ask is calculate the number of shares in issue after the buyback. Okay, so in other words, we're then going to option 2 where we do a share buyback. Okay, and then we're saying, remember, share buyback is where the company buys back some of its own shares, isn't it? Okay, so let's now see. Which means we'll now have less shares in issue. So what do we have? We know we have the PE ratio, okay, but we don't have earnings, isn't it? So what you then now need to do is you need to now manipulate your PE formula, okay? Firstly, you must know it, okay? And we know that it is your price divided by your earnings per share, okay? So first thing we get is your earnings per share. Okay, so they gave us this. They said our price is 80, and they told us that our PE is 12.5, and that's how we then got our earnings per share. But now we want to get our total earnings, right? We want to get our total earnings. Why do we want our total earnings? Because we're saying the total earnings for this year is what we are going to then say is going to be buying back shares in the business. Okay, so to get your total earnings, you take your earnings per share, right? And you times it by the number of shares. Okay, and so our total earnings is then 2,880,000. Then when we have that, right, we also know that we have a payout ratio. We're not paying out all of this, isn't it? Right? So we know our retention, and this is coming back to your question about how did we get the payout. So here you can see 1 minus the retention, okay, which is now giving us our payout of 40. And so we're not paying out the 2,880,000, okay, because of that policy. Okay. So yes. Yes, earnings times payout. That's exactly it. This is payout ratio. Okay. Then next step, we're now saying price per share to buy back. Okay, because basically this is what we are going to pay out in dividends. Okay, the total, right? So we know the market price, which is 80, and then but we don't have the dividend per share. We have the total dividends, but we don't have the dividend per share. So we then have to calculate dividend per share, which is obviously the amount that we're paying out in dividends divided by the number of total shares, which is the 450. So for every share, we're paying out 2 Rand 56. Okay, for this buyback. Okay, so now we complete our buyback price, okay, which is the 80 Rand plus the 2 Rand 50. Okay, so now we know that that's how much we are buying back, or the price of our buyback. But now we know that we only have limited funds, right? We only have total dividends worth 1,152,000, isn't it? So we then say how many shares based on that total dividend payout can we actually buy back? And this is where you're now saying that we take that 1,152,000 divided by the price per share buyback. And so we can buy back approximately 13,950 shares. So remember the question was, how many shares do we have after the buyback? So we take the number of shares that we had before the buyback, which was the 450, minus it from the shares that we would buy back to get our new total in terms of the shares after the buyback. So that was how many marks? 8 marks. That was 8 marks. So this question I know we definitely have in textbooks. So this one shouldn't give you too much hassles. Yes. Right. So you can see now the manipulation of your PE ratio to get your earnings. After getting your earnings, using your earnings to get your dividend buyback per share, and so on and so forth. So now here they say, assuming that the shares sell at old price to earnings ratio, in other words, assuming that the shares are selling at your old PE ratio, calculate the share price immediately after the repurchase. Okay, so we're saying that we're going to keep our PE. Let me use a different color. I think these things are now too thick. Or let me, this one thinner. Okay, that's fine. So we're basically saying that our PE ratio is still 12.5. All right. what is the new share price? Okay, what is the new share price? And how do we calculate our share price? What's the formula that we use? Your PE formula is equals to, your share price over EPS. Okay, so this is what we are looking for. We have this, it's 12.5, and we have earnings per share. No, we don't have the earnings per share. So we need to calculate this first. Okay, so that is exactly what they're now doing. So here you can see our earnings hasn't changed. It's still a total of 2,880,000. Okay. And then we know that we now have a new total in terms of our shares that are issued. Okay. So our new EPS is 6.61 rand. But now tell me something. As a result of a buyback, should your EPS decrease or increase? Do you have more shares as a result of a buyback? See, even if you look here, before we had how many shares? 450,000. Now we have. So it's going to increase. And if we look at our EPS before, just to reaffirm that, where did we calculate it? We did have EPS over here, 640. Okay. So, yes. Well, some people do it solely for those purposes. Some people do it solely for those purposes. Okay. But there are some other reasons as well. Okay, so once we have our EPS, we can now obviously calculate our price by manipulating the formula further, by simply saying PE times your EPS will then give us our new share price. And can you see? This is exactly what we are talking about. Can you see the share price has increased from 80 to this 82. And you can see that your share price has increased roughly by the price that we were paying for our dividend buyback, just in terms of how much were we paying on each share. So if you quickly look, this is what I'm trying to talk to, the dividend per share. Okay, so that was 2.56 rand. And here we are, I think it was 2 rand. Okay, so it's 2.63 rand. All right, so it's approximately very, very close. If you go through a similar question, you'll see the exact same patterns. The reason why I'm sharing this stuff with you guys is because I want you to intuitively, as you're going through a similar question, be feeling, am I on the right track or am I not? Right? Okay, but anyway, that's fine. So then, oh, there's a question. Because remember, they said earlier on that your price to earnings ratio, it remains unchanged. If they had not mentioned that, then they would have needed to give us a new price to earnings ratio. So for this third part, I want us actually to get the assumptions from the book. I've forgotten what page this is, but it's in Learning Unit 3. I'll give you the page just now. The question there that they're asking for 1.3 is, they said there's a huge discussion going on, all right, in the company between management, and they are speaking to does dividends or dividend policy have an impact on the share price of a company? Okay, so that's the context that they give you. Then they say, list any 3 assumptions that the dividend relevance policy makes. So remember, you've got dividend policy, dividend relevance policy, and you've got dividend irrelevance policy. You must be able to list both. Okay, now guys, I think I would recommend don't use these ones, because these ones are not the ones that are in your textbook. So go to page, where is this page now? Page 77. Yes, dividend relevance. Even the irrelevance is there on page 77. Yes, the assumptions. Okay, so there you can see it says the company does not take on any debt. All right. Earnings are perpetual in nature, meaning they go on forever. Yes. And cost of capital. Retention ratio. Okay. So mention any one of those 3 and you've gotten your marks. So that was question 1, 15 marks. A whole 15 marks. Huh? Yeah, it was. It was. It was. I think especially that first part was. So now moving on to question 2. Practical. What do you mean practical? I want to make sure I understand you. So you really can argue it both ways, because at the end of the day, there are investors who don't care about the dividend policy. They're invested in growth stocks, for example. So growth stocks is where you are very confident that the price of the company is going to increase over time. Things like technology companies are looked at as typical growth stocks, okay? Because the potential for growth is super, super high. Because remember, all you need is an app and customers who download the app, and then you can be selling to whoever, all right? So you really, I don't take a position to say it is irrelevant or it is relevant. I think it's a mix of both, in all honesty. But the primary thing that I feel influences its relevance or irrelevance is the customer. Customers who want dividend paying will obviously gravitate towards dividend paying companies and will obviously then purchase this. These assumptions that they mention here in both cases, we know we can't assume that the earnings are going to be perpetual in nature. In other words, go on forever. I'm speaking to dividend relevance theory. You go to dividend irrelevant theory. There are no taxes. Show me the country, guys. Right? Yes, we have Dubai and stuff like that. But practically speaking, most companies charge tax. Does that make sense? The next one, there are no transaction costs or flotation costs. Really? There is transaction costs, there are flotation costs. So you can see these are assumptions just to kind of isolate what you're trying to look at in terms of if a company is not paying, in a situation where they are paying dividends and not paying dividends, similar companies, because that's how you compare. And then you say, what is the impact on the share price? Okay, they're the same size, same revenue, same market share, da 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 da. We see that they have the same price. Okay, then people who would argue that the dividend policy actually does have an influence on the share price would then say, yes, you got those companies, same profile, but guess what? One is more valued than the other. And their argument is it is more valued than the other because of the dividend policy, or it is less valued than the other because they do not pay out dividends. But the whole point is it's your dividend policy that's influencing the fact that the share or the worth of the company is higher or lower than that of an exactly the same company with a similar profile. Yeah.
One was given then. So how do I know if I want to invest in a company?
Yeah.
From like GSC,
Mm.
how do I know if the company which was preference shares or the one shares? How do I know if this company shares that I'm buying up?
Yes. So that's where you look at the notes of that company. Because yes, and you look at it will also be in the financials that so much was paid in terms of dividends to shareholders. So that will give you the guidance to say, is this company paying dividends? What is it? Policy? Did they change their policy along the way, or are they consistent that no, we like to reward our shareholders to give them a return other than just our share price? You're ready for the real world, my friend.
Yeah.
So now we get to question 2. And with question 2, here, they basically are giving us a company, all right, that needs urgently to borrow 750 over a period of 120 days, which is equivalent to their current cash conversion cycle, as raising inflation has increased and their costs of production and negatively affected their cash flow. Okay, so I think the inflation has negatively affected their cash flow is what they're trying to say. The current prime rate is 12%, so prime is 12. It's 12. Then the financial manager has been able to negotiate 2 offers from Wealth and Quality Bank and has asked you to assist in selecting the best offer. Okay, right. So here they then say, the bank is currently quoting an interest rate of 3.5% above prime. Okay, so that then is obviously 15.5%. Okay, compounded every 120 days. Okay, so your N is 365 divided by 120 days. Okay, right. Then payable on maturity. Okay. 15.5, yes, would be I if you're going to use your financial calculator. So then here they say total commission percentage is calculated. Actually, we're not running for the whole year, right? So yeah, just be mindful of that as well, okay? You're not running for the whole year. Calculate, the total commission percentage is calculated as 0.25 per annum for every 150 made available to the borrower up to an amount of 450. So we're basically saying 150K, 0.25%. We move to 300K, it then becomes 0.50%. And so on and so forth. Okay, so take note of that. But now, okay, maybe let me just actually finish this off. 450. Because we are going to need these things. 450K then becomes 0.75% commission, right? Up to 450, and then 0.20% for every 150 borrowed above that. So when we now come here to 600K, we're then now saying plus an additional 0.20. So that would take you to 0.95%. And then when we get to the 750K that we're interested in, we then add another 0.20, which will take us to 1.15% commission. Okay. Then what else does it say? That's it. That's it. Okay. So I think it's best to kind of look at how then you would move. So the amount that we want to borrow is 750. The days, the term is only 120 days. Prime, we said, is 12%. Okay. So that means that our nominal annual rate is 15.5. We calculated that. So now here, they've done it a different way. But for me, what I'll do is I'll just say 120, and you'll see you get the same amount. 120 divided by 365 times 0.155. And you should then also get this 5.10% after timesing by 100 here. Okay, to make it a percentage. So then the interest that is then paid at maturity. Okay, we got two costs here when it comes to this particular bank. What is this? Wealth bank. We have the interest that must be paid, but then we also have, so we've calculated the interest there. We also have the commission that is being charged. Okay, I didn't see anything in the question say it's being charged upfront. Okay, but I think when you do borrow money, they tend to charge you that commission upfront, because remember, you came here to borrow money, right? So if we don't charge you upfront, when are you going to pay us, right? Because you came here because you don't have money. So usually they'll incorporate it within that, okay? So this is now where you can see they're doing the blocks that we were doing in terms of saying, what is the commission percentage? That's what they're doing here as well. So 0.
So is commission paid upfront or it's going to be?
So what they did here is they included it in the loan amount. And here I would say this suggests a solution. Take it with a pinch of salt, and I'll tell you why. Because I didn't see a question in your textbook similar to this. Because they can either say, okay, we are going to charge it in the loan amount in the 750, which means when you're not borrowing more than 750. So we'll take a bit of that 750 as a commission fee. Or they could say, in addition to this 750, you're not just going to take 750, but you're going to take on an additional commission portion, which will be on top of the 750. Can you see? So it can go either way. And that's why I wanted to check in your textbooks for a similar question, because how they then approached it, I was also going to approach it in a similar fashion, but I didn't see that.
Okay, so let's say if the commission is paid upfront,
Mhm.
I want this financial calculator to calculate the future payment. Am I going to if that upfront payment on present day?
Oh, I see what you're trying to say. If it's paid up front, yes. If it's paid up front, yes, you would put it on the present value. If it's not paid up front, then I would actually put that on future value, because you are paying it over the term of the loan. Can you see that? So very important. But yeah, we would need the information to know exactly what to do. So yeah. So now you see, okay, so we've apportioned, if you look, remember, this is the percentage we got for the 750 when we added up. So here you can see they just said times 0.25 and then times 2 on the 0.20. Okay, because we had two amounts of 150 above the 450 total. Okay, then what is then the total commission on 750? Okay, remember we have to apportion this this year for 120 days, which is what they're doing here to get this interest rate. Once you now have that, to times it, and you're getting a total commission of 2,835.62 cents. Okay, so here, remember, they said they did it upfront. So what have they done? They've taken the 750, which I feel is fair, because it's like, imagine going to the bank, you came there looking for 750, and then you're being forced to take more than that. You know, but at the same time, here's my other argument now. I came there looking for 750 for myself, not for 750 minus whatever I need to then pay upfront. Does that make sense? Because I've already said, remember in this question, they said they need 750 for their triple C cycle, isn't it? So for me, it's like, but now you're not giving me 750, you're giving me minus the commission, which is then obviously, these are the lecturers. Thomas, why are you making people scream? Huh? All right, so that now is the proceeds that we're receiving today. Okay, now the repayment at what you call this? In other words, the interest that we're then paying. Remember, this is what we calculated as our interest rate for 120 days. So 1 plus, okay, you then are getting your total principal plus the interest that you're paying. This one is this question was yeah, this one was a hectic one because you needed to apply yourself. You guys must pray. I must set these things for you guys. Okay, so now that we've got that, can you see what we're doing here? Now we're calculating what is the interest that we're actually paying on this loan by way of, we didn't use 750. Can you see that? We used the 747, which is the amount after the commission, right? So then we're basically saying, what is the interest that we're paying there, all right, or total that we are paying towards them, because there's interest and obviously commission there, divided by the total that we received, the principal, okay? So the interest rate there, Grammarly is hating on us, is then obviously 5.49%, okay? But now we want to make this an effective annual rate, because remember, we said the term of this loan is 120 days. Why are we making it an effective? Because remember, we also want to compare it with Quality Bank. Because remember, Quality Bank, their terms are different, isn't it? So we want to compare apples with apples. So we have to go into our effective annual rate, okay? So this formula, I'm sure you're well aware of, okay? And then obviously we're getting an effective cost of 17.67, okay? Now we can then step into the next bank. Can we finish this before we go for a break? Is it fine? We're still together. Okay. We're trying. Okay, no, as long as you're trying, it's fine. So Quality Bank, what are their terms? How are they willing to offer us this 750? Here, they say 750,000 loan, okay? But interest must be paid in advance. Due to the perceived risk of the company, the interest rate is 1/5 higher than the interest rate offered by Wealth Bank. However, no commission is payable on the loan. Okay, so we know that Wealth Bank was 15.5. Okay, so let's see. What are we doing for Quality Bank? Okay, so there you can see 1/5 is 20%, right? So we take that 15.5 times 1/5, okay? and we're getting 18.6. But again, this is for 120 days, isn't it? So again here, I would just say 120 over 365 times this 18.6, and that should give you the same 6.12. Okay, right. You now have that. You then say, okay, interest paid in advance. Voila. There's the interest that you must pay in advance. Okay. Then you say cash flow and effective cost. Again, they are then saying what you are going to take home from this loan, right, is 704,136 Rand and 99 cents. Okay. So now again, we want to get what? The effective annual cost. Okay. So we then say, okay, cool. Before we can do that, let's get what our actual interest is on this loan. The interest is the difference between what we have applied for and obviously what we are going to receive, divided by the principal of what we are going to receive, which gives us this 6.51%. And then now we need to make it an effective annual cost. And you plug in those into your formula, and voila, you get 21.16%. So which loan are we going to, which bank are we going to work with? The first one. Why the first one? Yes, it is cheaper, isn't it? Okay. It is cheaper. All right. So that's all that they actually wanted you to do, because they say don't just calculate, they also want you to recommend why you have selected that particular bank. Okay. Right. So I think we can park it there. And then when we get back, we'll just do question 3. And then we will call it a day. Call it a day. Right. I forgot to ask any questions, thoughts, concerns.
This question is going to be okay.
It could be. I can't say whether it will be. Yes, it shouldn't be. But this was 2023. I don't know if in 2023. Oh, 2023 paper. Okay. Then this shouldn't, it shouldn't be there. It's good. At least we've done learning unit 5, so it's fine. But yeah. Yes. Yes. It's part of learning unit 5, isn't it? I didn't